Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of PlayStation Pursuit. Now, in this week's episode, I have a couple more games that I got from some various friends of mine. These weren't all purchased all at once or in the course of 1 week. These were a few things that I just kind of built up over time, and I wanted to talk about them all together. And then, as usual, I will have some more PlayStation favorites that I want to talk about as well in this episode. So please stick around, and I will show you what I got. Alright, so the first two games I got, you may remember many episodes back, probably like 10 episodes ago or something, I bought a nice stack of games, mostly long box games, from a good friend of mine, Jason Wells, who sells games. And he gave me a great deal back then, and he actually contacted me asking if I needed a few from a stack that he had, and sure enough, I needed it. So I will show you the two I got from him. One of them, funny enough, is a game that he had in long box form, and so I just basically wanted to buy this jewel case variant. And the game is Shell Shock, which still haven't played it since I got the long box from him, but I think it's like a first-person tank style game. But pretty cool to get the variant on that, because even though it's not going to count as another additional number, it's still pretty cool to get all the versions for PlayStation. Now this one I was super stoked to get. One of the last few working designs titles that I need for the PlayStation. I have pretty much all of them. I think there's two maybe I still need after this, which I will be definitely looking for. Maybe three. But this is one. It's a sequel to a game that I've talked about in PlayStation favorites, and in a series that's also on the Saturn and was in the arcade. This title, it's got stickers on it still, is called Ray Crisis. So you may remember I talked about Ray Storm in the past. This is a great sequel to that. I like Ray Storm a little more, but I still really like Ray Crisis. This has a different style to it. It's a little more cyberpunk looking, almost like a Blade Runner type look to it. But still really cool, and it's interesting because like you can tell that it's in the same series, not just because it has Ray in the title, but the ship looks very similar to the ship from Layer Section or Galactic Attack, as it was called on Saturn. Or Ray Storm. It's got this similar, very iconic red ship, and this one looks similar, but it's definitely got more texture, detail to it and stuff. So it's an upgrade of the classic ship from the series. So great game, very happy to get that, and thank you for the great deal, Jason, for those. So really appreciate that. And then this game was another friend hookup. My friend Kyle actually. Another friend of mine from the Albany area, he reached out to me and said, do you have this game? And he gave me a really good price on it. And I actually have the first game, which I got in a past episode of PlayStation Pursuit. And that game is Street Fighter X2 Plus. So it's, or X Plus Alpha 2, I don't know. Oh yeah, it's X2 Plus is how they pronounce it. I know X Plus Alpha was the first game, but they took out the alpha, so it's X2 Plus. But pretty cool. Another, for those of you who don't know, 3D version of Street Fighter before the modern 3D Street Fighters. So not as good as the 2D classics, but I find a charm in them, especially on the PlayStation era. And I actually never played this one, so I'm excited to see the graphical upgrades since it was, you know, the sequel to the first one, which I thought was pretty cool. So definitely glad to get that. And then my friend Johnny gave me these, and these aren't games per se, but they are guides based off of PlayStation games. And my friend Johnny Lake, I've talked about him before, gotten some things from him before in PlayStation Pursuit and past Sprite Lovers episodes. But he actually was going to come out to Syracuse to drive to some stores in the area and outside of Syracuse together. So we did end up doing that, but this was actually from a separate time before we went on our little road trip. And what he gave me were 3 strategy guides for PlayStation 1 era games, so I really appreciated this. The first one is the original Tomb Raider. Pretty cool there. And then Tomb Raider The Last Revelation guide, so another cool pickup to have. And then Duke Nukem Time to Kill, which is ironically, being with the Tomb Raider ones, this is the one that's a little more Tomb Raider inspired because it's third-person perspective and everything. So, pretty cool to have these. Thank you, Johnny, for offering them to me because he knew that even though the games are where it's at, if I can get some other cool PlayStation 1 related stuff, I definitely want to have it in the collection. So, thank you so much, Johnny. I'm going to take a quick break to talk about some more PlayStation favorites this week, but then when I come back, I will have some of the games that I got while I was on that trip with Johnny that I mentioned before. So, stick around. So some of the favorites I want to talk about this week are kind of thematically similar, even though they're different franchises. And I wanted to talk real quick about how a lot of the games of the PlayStation era, being that they were early 3D, they don't hold up graphically or control-wise sometimes, but I still really like to see how ambitious these games were back then. They really tried to do more with the limited hardware, and obviously there's been games that have come out much better than these afterwards, but these two games I wanted to talk about because I thought they were pretty interesting. So, first one is a series that was around for a while, kind of been dead for years. PSP had one. I don't know if PS3 had one, but PSP was the last one I can think of off the top of my head. But it's on PlayStation 1, it was definitely one of the big push titles, even if they weren't the absolute best on the system. And that is Siphon Filter. Now, Siphon Filter 1 is the one I'm most familiar with, so that's the one I'm going to talk about. I have Siphon Filter 2 and 3, but I didn't play as much of them. I played like a demo of one, and then a couple levels in the other. But this is the one that like wowed me more. And the reason it wowed me, even though the character looks like he's running with a full diaper because he has kind of a funny running animation, it had a really cool, realistic tone, I'll say. Now, obviously, now it's not going to look as realistic, but back then it was really interesting to see when you zoomed in with a sniper rifle and shot an enemy in the head. It had a very similar reaction to when you play like a game like GoldenEye on the N64, where the animations, even though they were not ragdoll or anything, they were pre-made or pre-drawn animations. It looked really cool. It really looked like the person got hit with a bullet. And it was just back then. I remember going like, "Oh wow!" I think this had some blood too, like little, almost like lines of blood that shot out. So, it was a violent game, but it was pretty interesting in how they did it with the limited hardware. So I thought it was really cool, and it has lots of cool gadgets and stuff, almost like the kind of stuff you'd see in a game like Splinter Cell. But this game definitely was more action focused rather than stealth focused. Though you did have silenced weapons, and one thing I really liked about this is just little details. You go into like a corner store that the level takes you through, and you're shooting guys and everything, and a lot of the stuff is interactive. The glass will break, and things will explode that you think would probably explode if you shot them. Now, not everything is destructible or anything, but it's just one of those games that, for the PlayStation 1 era, I was really happy to see, and it makes me mad when like a game comes out today that has really good graphics, but the world just feels like a set, like you're on a movie set almost. It was one of the complaints I have about some of the Call of Duty games is that they're really action-packed roller coaster rides, but then everything feels like it's nailed down. Like you shoot a copying machine, and it doesn't cartoon style like at the game GoldenEye blow up, but you'd at least expect there to be damage to it. And it's just no, everything's solid down. And I like when I see a game from this era that actually did have details like that. So Siphon Filter is pretty cool. Check it out if you like stealth action kind of games, and it's definitely like it was trying to be the next big thing. And like I said, it's kind of fallen from grace over the past few years. But I always liked it, and I think if any of that sounds interesting to you, you should definitely check it out. Okay, this next game got a lot of hate back in the day because the aforementioned GoldenEye for an N64 that I was talking about when I was talking about Siphon Filter, that was the first time that a James Bond game and a licensed game really was a great game. It wasn't just a pretty good action game based off of a license. It was actually like a top game on the system and happened to be based off a movie license. Well, this was the next Bond game that came out. Not for N64, obviously. We're talking about PlayStation here, but this game is not as good as GoldenEye, don't get me wrong. But I also don't think it's as bad as a lot of people made it out to be back in the day, and I think it's a lot better than some of the later Bond games. And that is Tomorrow Never Dies. Did not like the movie. I did not like this movie at all. But this game is pretty cool. It's a third-person action game, so different than the GoldenEye first-person that everybody kind of wanted again. But it had a good mix of gameplay styles, which is something you'd see going forward from the Electronic Arts games. They tried to switch up and have it feel more like the Bond experience. This one's a little clunky, but I always liked it. I like some of the variety in the levels too. It takes place in a lot of the same areas from the movie, and they did some cool stuff with them. And I really liked sneaking through bases in this game. The little bit of stealth that was in it was pretty cool. The sniper rifle, which I think in a Bond game, when you have a cool sniper rifle to be able to play stealthy, kind of like GoldenEye set the tone for with some of its stealthier levels. I thought this did a good job of that, and it did enough things on its own that made it not just, hey, we can be GoldenEye too. Now, I think back in the day, people were like, oh, this game's just trying to cash in on to be the next big Bond game, but so many years have passed now. I don't know what if they were like, yes, we got the Bond license, we're gonna be the next GoldenEye winners when EA got the license. But it doesn't matter now, because now I just play it, and it's a pretty good third-person action-adventure game with a little bit of stealth elements for the system. Does the license justice, and one of the things I really like is the soundtrack. I'm a huge fan of the James Bond score from the original movies, and then the way the songs are remixed in other movies and games. And this had really good James Bond music, and it was done by Tommy Tallarico, which is one of my favorite game composers of all time. He's done Earthworm Jim and Treasures of the Deep for PS1. He's a really good composer, and I really liked his interpretations of some of the Bond themes, because it definitely fits like it would be in a James Bond movie, but really was iconic for this game for me as well. So pretty cool. It's really cheap, and it's in a couple other compilations and stuff on the platform as well. So easy to track down, and I think it's underrated. I think it gets unnecessary flack. So pretty cool Bond game. Check it out. Okay, so these last few games are ones that I found in various stops that Johnny and I did throughout Central New York. I don't think any of these I got in the immediate Syracuse area. It was all surrounding Syracuse, but no farther than like 45 minutes away from Syracuse. I think we went east of Syracuse. And these are the games I found. So some pretty cool titles in here. First one I'm going to show, I got this at a store, Replay Games, which I've talked about before. I think in the first episode of PlayStation Pursuit, I picked up Raystorm there, I think. It's a pretty cool store, and they have a lot of common PS1 games strewn about. So it's good when I go stop in there. I know I can spend a few bucks and get some games that I don't have to fill in the collection. And this one I saw, which I actually don't see anywhere else, but I know on the Sega Saturn, for some reason, don't know why, I didn't do the research on it, for some reason this game has skyrocketed, and now, just like most Saturn games, is really expensive. I doubt the PlayStation one will ever get it this expensive, but considering I never really see it, maybe it will be as rare. And that is Battle Sport by Acclaim. Looks like if not a car combat, like a ship combat game that kind of plays like a sport as well. So, hence the name Battle Sport. It even makes like bad puns about, says, what would Sunday be without a sudden death playoff? So, playing off of the idea of football. But it's seems to be like I said, costly game for Saturn. Don't know why, but I saw it for PlayStation for a few bucks, and I was like, hey, I should get that one just in case. Now the next game I got actually is it's a 3-pack. It's another one of those white label collector's editions that I have a few. If you can see them now, they're off. Or yeah, over here. These ones, you can see them. Ha! I see the new wider angle I'm not used to for the videos. But anyway, I have all 3 of these games already. One of them I actually just got recently, and another one I talked about in PlayStation Favorites. But I knew this existed. I saw it at a video game con when I was there, and I asked the guy how much, and he looked it up, and he marked it for more than it costs online, because I looked it up there as well. I already looked it up before he looked it up, but so I thought that was kind of weird. And then I found it for under what it goes for online at a store. I can't remember which store. Oh, this was a store called Mind Game, which is a pretty cool store in the east of Syracuse, New York area. And this collection is, I don't know if it has a title, but I know it's like the IDOS collector's edition, because these are all made by IDOS or maybe Crystal Dynamics was the company, because both their names are on these. But as you can see, it has the original Blood Omen Legacy of Kain. It has Legacy of Kain 2 Soul Reaver, which is the one I got recently, and then Fighting Force, which doesn't really fit, but I think, oh yeah, this is what I thought was funny when I picked this up. Oh, you know what? Maybe I got this at Voltage, because I made a comment to the employee where I got this, and I think it was Voltage. This is what is like the unifying factor of this collection. It's all about the body count. So that's what I guess this is the it's all about the body count collection. So either way, pretty cool to get another white label. As you can see, it's kind of cool to see a game like Fighting Force or Legacy of Kain have the white label. So pretty cool to find that. And yeah, that's right. I think it was Voltage that I got this. So sorry, Mind Game. Oh, I got a board game when I was at Mind Game. So I did get something on that trip, but not for a PlayStation Pursuit episode. And then the last 2 games I got these, where was it? Oh, Game Craze, which I've been to in Rochester before in past episodes of Sprite Lovers, but also we had one in our mall in Syracuse a long time ago, and this actually was the one in Syracuse that kind of moved. And I've never been a big fan of that store, but like most game stores, even if you're not too satisfied with them, you might be able to find something here and there that you need. So, still is worth checking out. And the first one I got, it's another one where the name, like, you look at it and you go, what? Like, I didn't even know this existed. And I have a list, mind you, that I'm, filling out as I get games for the collection. And I still was like, what the heck is this game? I know it's on that list, but it just, I don't know, it's got a weird title. It's Professional Underground League of Pain. And it looks to be a violent football style sport game. I watched some videos of it. I haven't played it yet. And it looks like it's kind of interesting, clunky of course, but had cool lighting effects and stuff. But yeah, it's like this action sport, which, this I feel like is a genre that even before PlayStation era, there's always been those sport games that aren't really for sports fans. They're like sports that are just off the wall. I know there was like a game on the original Xbox that this reminds me of a lot. I think it was called Death Row. And then, the Mutant League games, sports fans like those too, but I know tons of people who like Mutant League football and Mutant League hockey. So this seems to be in that vein of action sports game, and it's produced by Psygnosis, which is a great classic team. And then it says there's Beyond Reality, I think is the developer. Never heard of that developer before, but just thought it was one of those ones that you're like, well, you don't see that very often, so pretty cool to find that. And then this, I don't know how I missed this one, because back in the day, before I started selling a lot of my collection, if some of you watched before the PlayStation Pursuit, I was big on the company Atlas. I was trying to get all the Atlas games I could find. And I even remember seeing this on a list of Atlas games, but this is an Atlas game, believe it or not. And you wouldn't know if you didn't see the logo on it by the front, that this is an Atlas title. And it's called Peak Performance. And you see it's like a stock car racing game. But it doesn't seem to be very NASCAR-esque, other than the car looking like a NASCAR car at first glance. I'll read a little bit on the back because it sounds interesting. It says, scream up and down mountain roads, so it's not regular track-based. Do donuts in the middle of a busy downtown intersection, race through tunnels, over bridges, drive a bus, a scooter, or any of the 20-plus cars. And it does show, different vehicles and everything on here. So now I'm starting to see, okay, this sounds more like an Atlas title, where it's not your traditional game. And it says it has 5 tracks, impeccable details is one of the bullet points, and it has a track editor. So the more I look at it, I'm thinking it might be a lot like the CarPG games that Atlas was known for, like Koro Q, as well as Trackmania, where you build your own tracks. So I think this might have some of those elements. Maybe this is where some of those elements came from. I don't know if this was before those games series, but seems pretty cool. I definitely am glad to have found this an Atlas game for PS1 that I didn't know about, and it was cheap, so pretty cool addition to the collection. So that was all from that trip with Johnny, and those are all the games for this episode. So I'm going to tally them up real quick since the last episode, and we'll see where we are with the PlayStation Pursuit. Okay, so the additions aren't as much as how many games I just showed you, because I have some of the duplicates. Like I said, there's a variant and the collector's editions. I have all those. So I add 5 more games, and I'm now up to 545 games for the PS1. So pretty cool. Even when I get a small addition like this to the collection, it's moving me up the ladder. So I'm very happy, even if I get 1 or 2 games. So pretty cool episode, and I hope you enjoyed it yourselves and liked the games that I showed off this time. And I'm really excited to see what the next episode would bring. So thank you once again for watching, and as always, if you could like, subscribe, comment, and I gotta thank you guys double this episode, because I'm now over 500 subscribers myself. So not only are my PlayStation games over 500, but my subscribers for the channel are over 500. So it makes me feel really thankful that I have that many people who are tuning in. And I know not all 500 are watching every episode, but the fact that the channel's grown that much is pretty cool and is an honor. So thank you everyone for watching, and I will see you in the next episode.